Season's greetings, dear friends of the realm, and welcome to a very special AGOT lore video, where we will be discussing the holidays of the Seven Kingdoms and beyond. December is, for many parts of the world, a time of holidays and celebration, and if you celebrate any of those around this time, then I hope your day is both merry and enjoyable. And even if you do not, I wish you a pleasant viewing. I now invite you to sit back, relax, maybe grab yourself a hot drink of mulled wine, coffee, tea, or hot water if that's what you prefer, and let us begin our exploration of this relatively obscure corner of A Song of Ice and Fire lore. Now, holidays do not take center stage in the overall story of A Song of Ice and Fire for obvious reasons, but rather exist in the background to fill in the world whenever relevant. Also keep in mind, we aren't really aware of how seasons or years work in Westeros, considering some seasons can last for literal years, comparatively speaking. So keep this in mind when I say annual, I mean that in a loose way. If it wasn't obvious by now, this lore video will not be able to go as in depth with each of these as I normally would, so instead I will be listing all of these topics out in more of a bullet point style. I hope that's okay. This information was dredged from deep corners of the web, let me tell you, from forums and some books, and a lot of cross-referencing and hoping, and a little bit of speculation. As always, if I miss anything, feel free to leave it in the comments. I've decided to break these up to continents, and unfortunately we only know of holidays on Westeros and Essos, seeing as these are the regions we have access to the most in the stories. So I'm going to start with Westeros and then move on to Essos from there. Starting off here, we have the most obvious one on the list, and those would be religious holidays. Seeing how important the Faith of the Seven is in the lives of the common folk and nobility, it's no wonder that each of the seven deities, besides maybe the Stranger, who's the deity of death, would get their own celebration, even though we only have 3 holidays mentioned specifically in the books thus far. In A Feast for Crows, we see Marjorie preparing for Maiden's Day, a celebration in honor of the maiden where virgin girls gather in the sept in some form of celebration while mothers, whores, and widows are banned along with men from coming. We don't find out too much about it, other than the maidens sing a song of innocence and that Marjorie gets arrested because she's not, shocker, a virgin after being married 3 times. Presumably they gather in the sept and perform some sort of strict, boring festivities. I'd imagine it's fairly rigid and unfun in nature. We also know about the feast day of Our Father Above in honor of the Father. Could be something like a Father's Day, but in a general term, but when it's mentioned in Fire and Blood, Lord Unwin Peake, Hand of the King at the time, has the dungeons of the Red Keep emptied and the offenders executed publicly in mass. So kind of a grim holiday, if that's all we know about it. The last of the known holidays is for the Smith, which we know nothing about aside from that it exists. I assume some fun contests of crafting or perhaps a form of Labor Day could be cool, but it's probably something horrible, like you only get flagellated with chains on your way home by the priests or something. I have no idea. No fun allowed on most of these holidays, I'd assume. Turning to something a bit happier now, we have the Harvest Day festivals. In the Reach, the biggest of these is known as the Harvest Moon Festival, where the nobles of the realm attend a grand masquerade ball, presumably at Highgarden, where they dress in elaborate costumes that take months to acquire and make. Sounds a bit like a Halloween meets Harvest Ball, and I'd be very down to attend if anyone can snag me an invite. Likewise, there seems to be a sort of Harvest Festival in Winterfell and Casterly Rock that we hear of in the books. Tyrion and Cersei make brief comments to one another about it, but in Winterfell I can imagine this is, and again this is all speculation, a sort of Saturnalia last hurrah before the long winter type celebration, as people prepare to hunker down with what crops they manage to spare and endure the long cold months. It would likewise be safe to assume, at least I think, that like many northern cultures in our world, there's a celebration of spring or the end of winter. I would also wager that a harvest type festival is pretty universal throughout the Seven Kingdoms, especially in places which are big on farming, like the Reach, as I just said, and the Vale, which I've mentioned before in my region lore video, which is well known for their harvesting. In King's Landing, there's an annual celebration for the coronation of Aegon the Conqueror in Old Town. I assume this would be celebrated in most major cities, but I bring up King's Landing specifically because, if memory serves me right here, I believe Robb Stark, during the rebellion, initially plans an assault on King's Landing because he assumes most of the people will be hungover from the festivities. And though he is dead by the time this comes around, it is actually the day, or the day he was planning on attacking is the day, in the year 300 AC, that Joffrey is married to Marjorie and shortly after dies in an event known as the Purple Wedding. Overall, it feels like this one's sort of like a New Year's, so I can't imagine many skip out on it. Never a bad time to party. In the last of these Westeros holidays, we have a technicality. In some places in the realm, there are celebrations for name days or birthdays, but usually these are only for nobles, as I don't see or imagine many in the realm caring much aside from living to see another one. In Dunkenegg, the tournament at Ashford, where Baelor Breakspear is slain, is held in honor of one such name day. Not technically a holiday, but I think it's close enough. If a noble is throwing a festival for his daughter's name day as she becomes an adult or is married or something, then I would say the festivities would be as grand as a normal holiday, so I'm gonna count it. Moving on from Westeros, we turn our eyes east to the much bigger continent of Essos, but unfortunately bigger does not mean more, as we only have a few celebrations to mention. In the free city of Norvos, which sits between Pentos and Qohor, there's a staircase which divides the higher and lower city, known as Sinner's Steps. Each year there's a great festival, and bears are brought in to dance on the stairs for the entertainment of the city. Evidently, this celebration takes place during the winter months, as according to the captain of the guard reminiscing in Feast for Crows, the taste of winter cake and fermented goat's milk laced with honey remind him of the festivities. The name, however, eludes us, as it doesn't seem to be mentioned beyond that. Perhaps something simple like the Festival of Sinners could be. Regardless, for my own part, here's the quote in question, which I find decadent, and I think really invokes the imagery of this holiday in just a handful of words, so I'd like to share it with you. The taste of winter cake filled his mouth again, rich with ginger and pine nuts and bits of cherry, with nausea to wash it down, fermented goat's milk served in an iron cup and laced with honey. He was with his mother in her dress with the squirrel collar, the one she wore but once each year, when they went to see the bears dance down the Sinner's Steps. In the free city of Qohar, there's an annual holiday celebration for the Black Goat, a rather grim and bloodthirsty deity whom the faceless men of Braavos believe to be one of the faces of the many-faced god, a god of death who takes on different appearances based on who is worshipping him. During the celebration, there's a great blood sacrifice made in the form of calves, bulls, and horses, ending in special criminals also being slain, burned, or otherwise sacrificed up to the bloodthirsty god of the city. Why are the people in the world like this? I hope the food is good at least, but I imagine it's just made of people. And finally, we come to Braavos, perhaps the most well-known of the free cities, and their celebration of the unmasking of Uthero. This is a holiday named in honor of the city revealing its existence to the known world after a local leader named Uthero sent out ships en masse, inviting the world to come to Braavos to celebrate its 111th anniversary, having already existed but never announcing itself publicly. Now, the festival has evolved into a 10-day-long affair of mass patrons drinking, gambling, and otherwise partying their way through the streets of Braavos until midnight of the 10th day, when the Titan of Braavos, the massive statue and lighthouse of the city, roars from deep within by the aid of a great horn, and the revelers remove their masks as one. This is probably the only other holiday besides the Harvest Festival I'd even remotely want to attend, but I imagine the hangover would be pretty killer. 10 days of partying? Oh my god. But that, dear friends of the realm, is the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed this little tour of the sparse but colorful holidays of the world of Ice and Fire. Once again, I wish you a beautiful day regardless of if you celebrate or not. And as always, if you like these kinds of videos, a like and a comment go a long way to overcoming the dreaded algorithm. And if you like these lore videos specifically, check out my AGOT playlist for more. I make new ones at least once a month, usually about a region, but sometimes about other things, so there's always something new to check out. As always, I'm Soul. Thank you so much for watching. Happy holidays, and I will see you all in the next one, and in the new year very soon.